What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today I wanted to showcase some Tinkaton gameplay in the Open Grey League. It's a very good Pokemon, as well as a very forgotten about pick in this season. It's one of the best counters to Sucker Punch users in the game, and it also has a lot of great matchups neutrally, as long as you avoid the Mud Slap users, as well as the Incinerate users. Let's get into the battles and see what Tinkaton can do. Alright, first game of the day, gonna see Tinkaton up against the Spiritum, a fantastic lead, as well as a Pokemon you don't see too often here in the Open Grey League. I know at this point our opponent has to swap out. They bring in a Shadow Scizor. I thought when I saw Steel and Bug it was going to be a Fortress. Unfortunately, that is not the case here. This Shadow Scizor potentially can 2-shield through our Shadow Dust Norm. The thing is, you're running Hexes or Fast Move rather than Astonish. That is mainly for the energy generation that Hex is able to provide, but by not having that extra Fast Move pressure, it might allow this Shadow Scizor to 2-shield fully farm us down, which could be just as awkward. In comes another charge move here. This Night Slash will be thrown right before I'm able to do anything with our Dust Norm. This means at this point, I will have to go for my second shield. Our opponent will have to second shield their own Shadow Scizor if they want to keep switch, but at this point, it will be an interesting spot to be in one way or another. They do double shield, and while that isn't amazing for me, because now I'm going to have to probably align my Tinkaton against something it doesn't want to see in the backline, I know that that Spiritomb still has nowhere to go in this game. Both my Moltres as well as my Tinkaton have a lot of play to that Pokemon. They go for a Night Slash here as a parting gift into my Moltres, but in comes that Spiritomb. They realize at this point its best use case is just draining energy here from Moltres, getting a full-on Brave Bird to be thrown into this Pokemon. In comes the Brave Bird. Our opponent at this point, no shields remaining, will have to go down with their Spiritomb. In comes their final pick. It's going to be a Digger's Beam, and I think we have play right now, but it's going to be just a little bit awkward depending on what they do. I try to catch a Fire Punch there, but our opponent ends up overfarming. They're going to throw a Scorching Sands now into our Tinkaton, but I think no matter what, we still have a lot of play in this game. I have a Fly ready to go on my Moltres. Either they're going to have to throw energy early here and make it so they don't take 2 play roughs, or potentially I can just reach a Brave Bird on the Moltres in the backline, or I'll get enough damage that they're in range where that Fly I have loaded is enough to knock out. In comes a Bulldoze here on a CMP with this Diggersby. This might not be enough to knock him out here, saying Bulldoze is one of the worst moves in the game, but it will put them definitely into range where a Fly will be enough to KO this Pokemon. In comes a move. This is going to be a Fire Punch. Doesn't quite knock us out here. Maybe an undercharge from our opponent, but I can swap out, go for the Fly, guarantee the knockout into their Diggersby, and take the win here in the first game. In comes a Fly. Down goes the Diggersby. GG to our opponent. Tinkaton got a great lead in that first game. Can we see it here once again? Let's see. I guess we can. Regidrago, potentially one of the best, if not just the best lead I could see in this entire meta. They say swap a Diggersby here. We know that Shadow Dust Norm with that Hex Fast Move can generate energy just a little bit quicker here than if I were on Astonish, and I'm not reliant as much on Fast Move pressure as I am on my Dynamic Punches, which means this matchup is a lot easier to deal with. I can go for these Dynamic Punches. Do we see a shield from our opponent? At this point, they don't get one shot, but I'm almost at my next move. In comes that first Dynamic Punch. Our opponent does let it go. In comes the second Dynamic Punch. Do we see a shield on this one? This move is not debuffed at this point. They have not got that chance debuff with the Scorching Sands just yet, and in comes that first shield from our opponent. I can shield this up if I think it's going to be a Scorching Sands, but it feels like they might be trying to flip switch. I no shield a potential bait, but they full send the Scorching Sands, meaning now down goes switch advantage, unfortunately, but I do have a shield advantage, and I know Regidrago at this point would not want to take a Brave Bird. Maybe we still have some play in this game. In comes a Fire Punch there. Our opponent will reach another one here before I get a full farm down. In comes a Charge Attack. It's going to be a Fire Punch. They would not ever throw a Scorching Sands into us here. That'd be kind of crazy. In comes that move. Down goes our first shield. I don't want to be super low on our Pokemon right now. In comes that Regidrago, as we did expect. I'm going to go for the double fly. Maybe a misplay, though. Potentially, I should be going instead for the Brave Bird, knowing that at this point, they're probably going to sack their Regidrago. They do end up letting that move go, which means I have to throw a full next fly to knock him out here. Bit of a misplay by us potentially here in this game. Down goes the Regidrago. In the backline, going to be a Shadow Scizor, and I think we still have some play in this match right now, but it's going to be just a little bit uncomfortable. Shadow Scizor has no charge move pressure into our Tinkaton, but what they do have is a lot of fast move pressure across the board. We get a defense drop with that first Bulldoze here, which might help us out just a little bit. In comes the charge attack. They go for the Trailblaze. That is a very smart play. Now their attack has been ramped up. It's going to mean their bullet punches are going to shred through my HP on both my Tinkaton as well as my Moltres in the backline. In comes that second Bulldoze. Our opponent goes to full farm down against us. Can I get the KO against them? It's going to be a Sinal KO, it looks like. So I'll take a tie. But honestly, seeing how good that lead was, they had to play out of their minds to get the tie there. GG to our opponent. Next game, going to see a Wigglytuff in the lead, a much better lead. Actually, we've only seen good leads for us here this day so far, so very good for our Tinkaton to see. Honestly, as a Pokemon people are disrespecting right now in the meta. I could see why it's winning so many leads right now. In comes a Play Rough into the Dugong, and at this point, I'm going to try to catch a move if I can on my Shadow Dust Norm. In comes an attack here, likely going to be a Drill Run because they were going to throw that into the Tinkaton rather than into our Dust Norm. Yeah, we do catch the Drill Run there, so we're not quite debuffed yet, but they do reach a second move before we can get to a Dynamic Punch. With that said, I'm going to shield this up. I know at this point I can build up a lot of energy, potentially go for Dynamic Punches into that Wigglytuff if I need to here. We're back-to-back charge attacks right now. In comes the first Dynamic Punch. If they shield this one, I can go for the second, and if they no shield, then I can land a move into whatever they're going to bring in. In comes the Wigglytuff. We do have Dynamic Punch ready to go at this point. Down goes either a lot of HP or potentially the first shield from this Wigglytuff. In comes a move. Our opponent opts to let it go. Half their HP is down the drain, and it's going to come down to what they have in the backline to see if we can have any play in this match. If they have a huge core breaker that might not be great for us, it's going to be, honestly, a little bit of a tricky Pokemon to see. Shadow Annihilate does have a lot of play into both Tinkaton as well as Moltres. In comes the Bulldoze. They do no shield, and they get a defense drop against them, which is one of the best things that we could see here. With that defense drop, as well as landing that move, we can just do a 1 shield farm down against them, go for some flies against that Wigglytuff, and we should be able to win this match. We are down 2 shields to 0, but that Wigglytuff has no damage against Tinkaton, and we have a lot of energy here on Moltres. We're at 1 fly. We might even be able to get a second one off here. Let's see if it can happen. Fly number 1, almost certainly getting a shield. Fly number 2, going to follow very shortly after. In comes that fly. We do actually reach it here right before getting charmed down. They should get the KO against this Wigglytuff, and by getting the shield, it's just a guaranteed win at this point. Our Tinkaton is way too healthy to get knocked out by resisted charge attacks. All we need is a single charge attack into them. One play rep will finish off this game. In comes an Icy Wind. Our opponent will debuff our attack stat one more time here, but it's not going to matter. We're already at another play rough. This will knock him out. Down goes the Wigglytuff, and we're able to take the win here. GG to opponent. Play rough is not the strongest move in the game, but at this point, they're low enough that Tinkaton can finish off the job, and I love beating Wigglytuff, so GG there once again. Next game, I'm going to see the Cloudsire in the lead. First, really bad lead that we've seen here today, but I do have Pokemon that can at least kind of deal with this in the back line. If they're on Sludge Bomb, it's a lot better for us because our Moltres wouldn't get one-shot by like a Stone Edge, but if it is on that Stone Edge moveset, then it's a huge core breaker to the Tinkaton Moltres core. We say Swap Shadow, Dusclops, or Dusknoir rather, and are met, unfortunately, by a Galarian Moltres, a Pokemon I really don't want to have to see, but at this point, I actually do reach 2 of these charge attacks here because Hex generates energy just a little bit quicker. We get a shield advantage. We can bring in our Tinkaton to absorb all of this energy, but we get a 1-turn lag here, which means we miss out on a full Fairy Wind damage on what is likely going to be a Brave Bird Sneak, which means that that is a lot of extra damage that I'm missing out against this Pokemon. They're able to survive just long enough to get to another charge attack here, which means I'm going to take another Sucker Punch that I shouldn't have to take here in this game. In comes that Brave Bird. Our Tinkaton just barely gets that farm down. We have energy loaded for the back line. I'm going to go, though, for the Bulldoze here into this Cloudsire because I don't have a great answer to it in the back. I do have a shield advantage at the very least, but this is going to be a pretty awkward game one way or another. In comes our final Pokemon. It's a Shadow Feraligatr, a Pokemon that we do have a lot of play into, but it depends on that moveset on that Cloudsire in the back. I can't really no-shield even just a Hydro Cannon. I know they didn't even build up enough energy to go for anything else, but I know at this point I have to stay outside of range where Poison Sting farm down will happen against us. In comes our Fly against our opponent. They will end up going for the shield actually against that move, so I'm going to go for the next shield, go for the full farm down here, and see what we can do. They're on Sludge Bomb. Once again, we have a lot of play. If they're on Stone Edge, though, it might be just a little bit awkward here because I don't know if we're able to get to 2 flies before they reach a charge attack. In comes our move here. Fly will be reached. This move is going to be able to knock them out or knock them down to a lot of HP. Let's see how much damage it's going to do. It's not going to get the knockout there. I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it doesn't quite get the 2-shot here. That might have been a CMP as well. If that was a CMP on a Sludge Bomb, we're still in a spot where we can potentially win this game. But if this is a Stone Edge, this definitely knocks us out. Here comes a charge attack. It's going to be the Stone Edge. Down goes our Moltres. Unfortunately, because we took that extra Sucker Punch as well earlier on in the game, not quite able to reach a Bulldoze there in the back line, but well played to our opponent. Next game, bit of an awkward Pokemon to see once again, a Unova Stunfisk in the lead, but I do have Bulldoze, which at the very least is technically super effective into this Pokemon. Maybe we can have some play here. In comes our charge attack. Our opponent likely will let this go, saying it can debuff their defense. No debuff does happen, but I'm going to try to whittle this down as much as I can, so our Moltres in the backline does not have to deal with it. Comes a charge attack here. The Mud Bomb being thrown. It does get a 2-shot against us, so I have to instantly throw just in case they go for the next Mud Bomb here. In comes our Bulldoze. They overfarm energy, though, which is a little bit scary for us to see. Bulldoze number 2 comes to it, does put them deep into the yellow, nearly into the red, potentially into range where we can go for a farm down with our Sucker Punch damage later on if we need to, but they have a lot of energy left over on this Eupisk, so I'm going to come in instead with our Dusknoir and see what we can do. It looks like I can't really get an Astonish down here, at least not without taking a lot of damage, so I'm going to have to go for the Shadow Punch instantly to knock out this Eupisk as quick as I can. In comes our Shadow Punch, down goes a Eupisk, which is hopefully their best answer to our Moltres in the back. Shadow Punch is going to get a shield. Our opponent does, in fact, let it go. What are we going to see come in here? Our opponent thinking for just a second. They come in actually with a Lapras. Not the worst Pokemon for me to see, saying I have Dynamic Punch, but it is a little bit uncomfortable saying at this point if they have Ice Beam, potentially my Moltres is in some trouble. In comes the Shadow Punch. Down goes their first shield on the bait. I can reach another Dynamic Punch here in just a second. In comes the Charge Attack. Gonna be a Sparkling Aria almost certainly into us. It's going to be, as we thought there, the lower energy move, and Dynamic Punch gonna try to draw a shield from them if we can. Our opponent might let this go. It depends on what they have in the backline and how much they want to invest in it. No, they do shield that attack up. In comes our Galarian Moltres, and they are staying in this matchup, which is so surprising to me right now. In comes the charge attack. I don't know what it's going to be. It could be an Ice Beam, potentially. We shield it up. They go for the Sparkling Aria bait. Not what I want to see at this point. In comes our next charge attack here. I don't want to take an Ice Beam or a Skull Bash. I have no idea what they might have in the backline. In comes the Brave Bird. Down goes the Lapras. But in the back is a Shadow Primeape. They're able to get the 5 Karate Chops to either get an Ice Punch or a Close Combat. One more Sucker Punch of Overfarm might have been enough here to win us this game, but because I didn't take damage from that Lapras, I think also it could have been kind of closer one way or another, but they're able to get the Shadow Primeape endgame sweep. Well played to them, just barely not able to get 2 moves there to knock him out. Next lead, Zumemeral into Tinkaton. Not the worst Pokemon for us to see here. Honestly, happy to get rid of this before my Moltres in the backline is going to have to deal with it. But I know if they're staying in, that likely means Tinkaton would have a lot of play in the backline too. And while Zumemeral doesn't do a lot of charge attack pressure into us with Ice Beam as well as Play Rough, these bubbles are going to add up enough to make it so Tinkaton doesn't get a lot of work done in this game. In comes a charge attack here. I know I can survive whatever they're going to throw into us. It's going to be a Hydro Pump, actually. I guess it's option 3 out of the 2 options I was talking about there. This means now they are actually able to farm us all the way down. This means this matchup that on paper was really good for us is now not anywhere near in our favor. I try to go for the Bulldoze, but they Shadow Claws down with the Shadow Sableye. So now Sableye has a huge energy lead. Moltres at least is able to align into this Pokemon, but we're in a bit of a tricky spot at this point. I know they're going to be able to get both of our shields here potentially against us. Foul Play does get a baited shield against us too. That's not what I love to see, because Foul Play is going to be a lot cheaper than a Power Gem or a Dazzling Gleam. If they get another bait off, there's a chance they might even just get to 3 Foul Plays here in this matchup, which is so annoying for us at this point. They're at back-to-back moves. I think it's going to be 2 Foul Plays, but I have to shield just in case they do go for the nuke. It is a Foul Play, but in comes the next Foul Play. Sableye is putting in so much work right now into our team. In comes the move. It's going to be a Foul Play. Once again, we can survive and get that full farm down against them. If Azu comes back in, I can go for a Fly right before they reach a charge attack. If it's Jellicent, I guess, I'm going to go for a Fly. I'm surprised they came in Jellicent here of all things. I guess at this point, maybe we have some play if I can catch a move, but it's going to be so tricky because if I don't catch this move right now, we are going to lose the match because Shadow Ball would have one-shot us. Instead, they go for the Surf here into our Dusknoir thanks to that catch, and now we might have just a little bit of play. I can go for a CMP here on a Shadow Punch, guarantee a knockout or a shield in this Pokemon, and while this is still a bit of a precarious spot to be in, saying Azumarill is still around, depending on how they play this out, we should be able to win this one. I think they are still 1 bubble away from a charge attack on that Azumarill, so at this point, unless they undercharge and get that energy lead on the Azu, we should be able to win this game. They don't undercharge, we get knocked out, so instead, we get the energy lead on our Moltres. We can outpace, go for the Fly, knock out the Azu, and now a couple more Sucker Punches can knock out the Jellicent, just barely picking us the win in that game. Next matchup going to be a Shadow Dusclops in the lead. Bit of an awkward Pokemon to see because our backline, well, specifically our Moltres would much rather be here. But I guess our Dusknoir also would be kind of awkward to swap in down energy, saying this Pokemon would be able to one-shot us with the Shadow Punch later on in the match. But at this point, they throw instantly, so I'm going to try to bait out a Pokemon from their backline. I see it's going to be a Shadow Drapon that comes in. Not the worst Pokemon for us to see, but it is going to be interesting depending on their final Pokemon in this game. Aquatail gonna bait our shield there, good bait by them. They realize I kind of have to shield. I don't want to let 100 energy go down to waste. In comes the Dynamic Punch into the Shadow Drapon. They shield it up themselves, but I'm already at a second one. This is where Hex really comes in handy. It can outpace so many Pokemon in this meta, especially just up 1 fast move. Comes that second shield here from our opponent. They know I have a Tinkaton in the backline. They just don't care at this point. They realize that they want to keep switching their favor. That must mean that whatever's in the backline does not want to see my Tinkaton. They have an Aquatail ready to go here, but I'm going to go for the Play Rough on CMP to guarantee they don't get a second one off into us. First, Aquatail will trip us down into the yellow, but once this Pokemon is out of the way, I'm hoping that our Moltres is going to have just a little bit more play. In comes a move, our opponent. Do we see a knockout here? It should be enough at this range. Just barely. Play Rough does get the KO. In comes our Moltres instantly. Our opponent swapping out to their own Golisopod. Okay, there is play for us right now, but it is a little bit awkward. I know if I take too much Fury Cutter damage, I'm going to be in range where an Ice Punch could knock us out. So I'm going to instantly go for the Fly here, knowing at this point they need to get to 2 Ice Punches, or at least an Ice Punch plus a Shadow Punch on that Dusclops to KO our Moltres. Fly knocks out the Golisopod, in comes that Shadow Dusclops once again. We can survive one of these moves, but if they can reach a second attack here, this game might get down to the wire. Ice Punch does so much damage, the Shadow Dusclops does do just a little bit more damage, but we can reach this next Fly. This will knock out the Dusclops and just barely take us the win here in this game. In comes a Fly, down goes the Shadow Dusclops. GG there to our opponent. Next match, going to see Tinkaton up against the Glyss Lead. That is a Pokemon you don't see too often. Normally you see Gligar in this meta, but Glyss has access to Earthquake instead, honestly, which is a lot more scary for us right now, because Earthquake would one-shot us. Dig, which Gligar usually runs, does not one-shot us. I have to go for Shield. I have to respect everything they're going to throw here. In comes our Play Rough, doesn't do quite as much damage as I would like. In comes what could be an Earthquake. Do they full send, or will they bait us? They go for an Aerial Ace bait. Fantastic bait by them, and because they bait there, they can just barely outpace us to the second charge attack. I know this is going to be an Earthquake. They want to get both of our shields down. We shield up to make sure, and yeah, there it is. Earthquake does come through. At this point, I don't think I can even farm down, at least not before they can get a lot of damage off into us, so we go for the Bulldoze, trying to get a knockout or a shield from this Glyss. Bulldoze coming through. They don't shield, but it does get the KO against a Flying-type Pokemon. Don't see that too often with Bulldoze. Not the best move in the game, but it's able to at least pick up the knockout there. And we see Dedenne come in, which is a Pokemon I don't really love to see, saying I don't have a great answer to it on our team. I mean, Tinkaton as well as Dusknoir do well enough into it, but we have to keep in mind, down 2 shields, and when they have this much energy, they can start ramping up, getting their defense stat to be pretty high. In comes a Parabolic Charge, which will increase their defense. Can I get a debuff here with this next Bulldoze? I have to hope that I can, and I have to also hope that whatever's in the backland, our team can deal with. In comes their next move. They're going to try to go for a CMP probably against us here. They do. Parabolic Charge will knock us out, but they've just kind of stacked their Dedenne at this point, which is probably one of the best things that I could see. At this point, what is in the backline, that is going to be what's going to make or break the game. It's going to be a Lapras, which, I mean, that's kind of playable, but it's also kind of scary. I know Lapras is going to be able to almost one-shot us here with a Charge Attack. I think I can hang on just long enough to get to 2 moves of my own. It's going to be an Ice Beam, and by knowing they have Ice Beam here, that's going to be one of the worst-case scenarios. Because they have this Charge Attack, now I know I'm going to take a lot of damage on our Moltres. Can I get to the second move? Just barely. I can reach this Dynamic Punch. It will knock out the Lapras, but now am I going to have enough HP on our Moltres to win this game? It's going to be so close. In comes our Moltres here. Our opponent going to be able to outpace us to a Charge Attack. Ice Beam is going to do a critical amount of damage to us. At this point, it's going to put us deep into the red, and Dedenne is still around in the backline. I can't really debuff my defense stat, because if I do, then I know at this point they're going to be able to farm us down easily with Dedenne. I had to go for the 2-fly win condition, but unfortunately just barely not able to do it. Next game, going to see a Kamo in the lead, though. Back to some pretty good leads here. Let's see what our opponent's going to do. They instantly swap out into their Shadow Dusclops. We have Galarian Moltres for this very scenario. Sucker Punch damage is super effective, but we have seen how much damage Ice Punch can do. I don't want to let any Shadow Punch shenanigans happen here. I'm going to shield up that first attack, go for the overfarm just a little bit, and the thing is, I know while I have gone down shields here, that Kamo likely does have to shield from us as well, saying they're also pretty weak to flying type damage. In comes the Fly, down goes the Dusclops, and in comes the Kamo once again. Interesting that they brought this Pokemon in, of all things. They didn't bring in their final Pokemon. They think at this point maybe Kamo is just a liability. Maybe they're going to sack this Pokemon completely. In comes a Fly. They actually do end up shielding. Interesting play by our opponent. Not quite able to get the next Fly off. If this is a Brick Break, I guess at least we'll know it's probably Brick Break and Clanging Scales. If it's a Dragon Claw, we won't know their next move. It is a Brick Break, it knocks us out, but because we know it's on Brick Break, they have no pressure here into our Tinkaton. We can bring in our Shadow Dusknoir, go for a lot of these Hex damages, as well as the Shadow Punch damage here, which, while it won't one-shot them, as long as they can get to 2 moves, we should be able to put them into play rough range, and then our Tinkaton can close out the game from there. Shadow Punch number 1 comes through. Shadow Punch number 2 already is going to be thrown before they even reach a Charge Attack here, which means we should be able to get them down into range where a playoff would knock them out, and even if they knock out our Dusknoir, our Tinkaton could close at the backline. They've realized that, and we take the win there in that game. Next game, Furret on the lead. Not a bad lead matchup here for our Tinkaton. They're also staying in, so they must be pretty weak to our Tinkaton in the backline. Let's see what they're going to do. Player of coming through against the Furret. Do we see a shield at this point? It would be kind of a waste for them. Furret is not going to have any play in this matchup. I'm still surprised they're staying in. In comes a Dusclops here on the safe swap, but I can bring in our Moltres. Seems like they're pretty soft to our Moltres so far in this game. Both Furret as well as Dusclops don't have a great time into it. In comes a Charge Attack. Ice Punch is super effective, but at this point I can take one. I can overfarm a lot of energy, have energy for the backline. They do get to another Ice Punch here, but I'm fine shielding this. Our Moltres is able to get to back-to-back flies before their next Ice Punch will be reached, which means at this point, if they want to shield, they have to shield twice, and if they no shield, then I can throw a Fly or a Brave Bird into their backline. Comes a Fly. Our opponent at this point likely does not want to invest a shield here. In comes a Fly. Down goes the Dusclops. If we see that Furret come back in, instantly go for this Fly to guarantee a knockout or a shield to make sure we don't get knocked out by a Swift beforehand. In comes that Fly. We do see a shield here from this Furret, and in comes a Swift. I think we can just barely survive this move here. Yeah, we do hang on. A couple of Sucker Punches later, we do get knocked out, but our Tinkaton can absorb the energy, and in comes an Oranguru. Wow, dude, they were triple weak to Galarian Moltres in this game. I'm kind of surprised by that, but they have dealt with my Moltres. With that said, our Tinkaton is still looking pretty good against this team. Our Dusknoir, on the other hand, looks pretty useless, so I'm going to just let this go for a Dynamic Punch, try to get any sort of chip damage I can with this Pokemon, and then just invest everything in our Tinkaton. They do end up shielding that move there, so down goes my Dusknoir. At least it did get a shield from them, but now Play Rough as well as Bulldoze will be enough to probably knock out this Oranguru, and then a Bulldoze against that Furret in the backline will be enough after some more Fairy Wind damage. In comes a Charge Attack here, probably a Trailblaze. They need to start ramping up their damage somehow. Both this Oranguru as well as that Furret only have resisted damage left in store against us, so at this point there's not a lot they can really do, and we still have a shield here, so I think we're in a pretty good spot. In comes another Charge Attack. It's a boosted Brutal Swing, but I know I can survive the move pretty easily here. Probably does just about as much as a move from that Furret, even after that +1 attack boost. In comes a Bulldoze. Will this be enough to knock out? It should be pretty close here. In comes a move, down goes the Oranguru, and in comes the Furret once again. We have Play Rough ready to go. This will knock them out, and at this point, Tinkaton able to close out this game, being a massive core breaker for the ABA Normal-type team. Next game here, we're going to see Shadow Dragonire up against the Tinkaton. Fantastic lead matchup. They're staying in the lead too, which is kind of insane to see. The visuals are lagging just a little bit here, but they did outpace us to the Aqua Tail, so likely they didn't lose a single fast move. In comes the Aqua Tail, down goes a bit of our HP, but we can go for the instant play rough. They catch on a Furret, actually, it looks like. Interesting play. Furret also doesn't really want to see our Tinkaton, but at this point, we can just bring in our Galarian Moltres, try to farm all the way down and have a ton of energy against the backline. In comes a move here. Swift will be able to do a decent amount of damage to us. I think the second Swift would come close to putting us into Sucker Punch down range, so going for Shield and then a farm down probably is not the worst idea out there. Keep some HP, keep a lot of energy as well on our Moltres. Let's see what they're going to do. Swift comes through, does draw our shield, but we get back-to-back flies on the way out of this matchup. In comes a Lantern. Okay, they do resist our charge attacks. And was that a Spark Lantern I saw too? Insane stuff here from our opponent so far this game. Lantern as well as Dragonire, a blast from the past. I'm going to go for a Brave Bird at this point. I know while this is resisted, if they let this go, then they're going to be pretty low at this point. Potentially in fast move farm down range or just spamming out Bulldozes and Shadow Punches here. They don't have a lot of moves to shield at this point. In comes what is likely going to be a Surf, but it might be a Thunderbolt. I don't want to be in fast move farm down range for that Dragonire, so we do shield it up. In comes that Dragonire once again, and Shadow Punches will likely get both of their shields. First Shadow Punch coming through, our opponent does end up shielding that attack up, but I can outpace just barely to this next Shadow Punch. The big question, though, is going to be, can they farm us all the way down before a third Shadow Punch will be reached? In comes that Shadow Punch, it's able to draw that shield. Can we get the next attack? These Dragon Bests are shredding through us, just barely farm us down before we're able to knock them out, but we can bring in our Moltres, force some energy out here, get a Sucker Punch through as well to get some fast food pressure into them, and now we can go for the Fairy Wind down, go for the Bulldoze as well into that Lantern, and we should be able to pick up the win in this game. In comes an Aqua Tail here. We know it doesn't even do half of our HP, so we can survive this. And if that Lantern does come back in, go for the Bulldoze as quickly as we can. This should guarantee a knockout here against this Pokemon. And once that Dragonire comes back in, a couple Fairy Winds should finish off the job. Comes that Dragonire, 2 Fairy Winds later, down goes the Dragonire, and we pick up the win. GG there to our opponent. Yeah, I think Tinkaton is a very fun Pokemon right now. Very good core breaker. Shadow Dusknoir, I think, was the weak link of this team. It's not exactly the best Pokemon out there as far as just like sweeping potential goes. I didn't want to just use a basic Dusclops team, although I think Dusclops would have been so much better in that slot. I wanted to try something just a little bit more fun, so Dusknoir was on the team just for that case, but just in general, Tinkaton was able to put in a lot of work, even with Dusknoir dragging it down, and Moltres and Tinkaton, I think, one of the best duos in the game. I think Galarian Moltres right now, one of the best Pokemon just in general in this meta as well, so if you don't have one, it's kind of a shame right now. I keep on using it in all my videos. I kind of feel bad every time I showcase this Pokemon. I know it's not the most accessible thing out there, but it's just so good right now. It's hard not to use, and when pairing it up with a Pokemon like Tinkaton, it can put in a lot of work. Alright, well, thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.